All right, deep divers, buckle up, because today we're taking a deep dive into a question that's as old as time. Is there evidence of intelligent design in nature?
Ooh, that's a big one.
It really is. And to tackle it, we're going microscopic today, diving into the world of bacteria and their secret weapon, the flagellum.
The flagellum, you say?
Yes, it's like their very own micro-outboard motor. Ever heard of it?
I can't say that I have, but it sounds fascinating already.
Oh, it is. We've got research papers, even a Smarter Everyday video that shows this thing in action, and trust me, it's mind-blowing.
So we're talking about evidence of design and something you can barely even see.
Exactly. It's like this perfectly engineered motor, smaller than a grain of sand, with all the bells and whistles, rotor, stator, bushings. It's even electric.
Wow. Okay, I can see where this is going. It's like, how could something so intricate, so seemingly designed, just evolve?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But to understand that, we need to go back in time, trace the flagellum's evolutionary journey. And thankfully, a group of scientists did just that in a paper called Stepwise Formation of the Bacterial Flagellar System.
Okay, so how do you even begin to study the evolution of something microscopic?
It's like detective work. These scientists, they dove deep into the genomes, the genetic blueprints of 41 different bacteria species.
Looking for clues, like a shared ancestor.
Exactly. A common ancestor or maybe a set of genes that suggest how the flagellum came to be.
So like comparing instruction manuals for building a flagellum across different types of bacteria.
Exactly. And what they found was amazing. They uncovered a core set of 24 genes that are absolutely essential for building a flagellum, like the basic building blocks. And here's the kicker. These 24 genes present in almost all the bacteria they studied.
Wow, so it's like finding the same ancient script carved on stones across different continents. It points to a shared history.
Precisely. And it's in that shared history where things get really, really interesting, particularly for this whole question of intelligent design.
It really is fascinating, because this whole idea of a complex motor, especially one with so many intricate parts like the flagellum, it's been a key argument for people who support intelligent design.
Right.
They'd say something this complex, this sophisticated, it just couldn't have come about through random evolution.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
It is hard to imagine something so, I don't know, just appearing out of nowhere.
Exactly. But remember that core set of 24 genes we were talking about? Well, this research paper, it actually suggests a different story. It proposes that those genes, they didn't just magically appear fully formed.
Okay.
Instead, they probably arose through this process called gene duplication and diversification.
Gene duplication. You're going to have to break that down for me. It sounds a little sci-fi, to be honest.
I know, right? But it's actually a really fundamental process in evolution. Picture this.
Yeah.
You have a gene, and it's doing its thing, performing a specific function. Now imagine that gene gets copied, like duplicated. Now you have two versions of the same gene.
I'm with you so far.
Now here's the thing. These copies, they're not always exact replicas. Sometimes tiny changes or mutations happen in those copies.
Interesting.
And most of the time, these mutations, they're not a big deal. Maybe they're neutral or even harmful. But every now and then, a mutation, it actually turns out to be beneficial.
So it's like nature's hitting copy and paste, but then going back and making little tweaks to the copy.
You got it. And over a very, very long time, these tiny little tweaks, driven by natural selection, they can actually lead to some pretty big changes. So the paper's suggesting that the flagellum, way back when, might have started as a much simpler system, maybe even just a basic pump that pushes things out of a cell.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me that this incredible motor, this thing that lets bacteria move around it, could have started as just a simple pump. How does that even work?
Well, that's the beauty of evolution. It can take what's already there, these existing structures, and over time mold them to serve new functions. So this pump, over countless generations and with all those little modifications we were talking about, it slowly transformed into the amazing motor we see today. It's honestly a testament to what those small changes can do over time, over eons, really.
Okay, that is pretty mind-blowing. So we're not talking about a sudden poof moment, but more like a very, very gradual evolution.
Exactly. And this is where another piece of research comes in, and this one uses some truly cutting-edge technology to actually see this evolution in action. We've also got a Nature microbiology paper in our stack today, and it describes how scientists used cryo-electron microscopy, cryo-EM for short, to actually visualize the flagellar motor in action at an atomic level.
Hold on, atomic level. they can see the individual atoms of this tiny motor while it's moving.
Isn't that incredible? It's like taking a snapshot of, I don't know, a hummingbird's wings mid-flight. You're capturing every tiny detail of how it works.
That's some seriously impressive imaging. So what do they actually see when they zoomed in that close?
Well, one thing they saw is that this motor, it's not just a one-trick pony. It's got two distinct states, or poses, you could say. Think of it like a boat propeller, the kind that can shift gears to go forward or backwards.
Okay.
So the research identified a counterclockwise pose, where the motor's running smoothly, propelling the bacteria forward. And then there's a clockwise pose, and this is where the motor shifts, causing the bacteria to kind of tumble and change direction.
So it's not just about movement, but controlled movement. This little motor lets bacteria actually navigate their environment. But how does it know when to switch directions? Is there like a tiny little captain steering the ship?
Haha, you'd be surprised no captain needed, thankfully. Or we'd need even smaller microscopes.
Uh-huh, that's a good point.
But no, the researchers actually pinpointed what acts as the switch in all this, and it turns out it's a specific protein called fleag.
So like a microscopic gear shift for our little outboard motor.
Exactly. And get this, these cryo-EM images, they actually showed flag rotating, like literally changing its shape to flip the motor between those counterclockwise and clockwise rotations we talked about.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, this is really making me realize that we should never underestimate the power of tiny things,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to bacteria. But I have to circle back to our original question, this whole idea of intelligent design. Does this incredible motor, does it point to something being designed? I mean, it's pretty amazing stuff.
It really is, and you've hit on a really important point there, kind of the heart of this whole debate. See, the evidence we've looked at today, it suggests that even incredibly complex structures, things as intricate as this flagellum, they can arise through these gradual evolutionary processes. No sudden poof moment, just a long, long series of small changes over time, each one building on the last.
So it's like building a skyscraper, but instead of bricks, it's genes. And it takes generations and generations to complete. Like, no single step is that mind-blowing, but when you see the final product, it's this awe-inspiring structure.
Exactly. This research, it really highlights how things like gene duplication, diversification, even repurposing those existing structures, they could have all played a part in how the flagellum came to be.
I imagine some people might still have a hard time wrapping their heads around that, though, right? Like, I get that gene duplication happens, but how does it know to create something useful, something like a motor? It feels like there almost has to be some kind of intelligence guiding these changes, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and it's a perspective a lot of people hold. When you look at the elegance of it all, the complexity, the way these small changes come together to create this working machine, well, it leads some people to believe that there must be some kind of underlying intelligence orchestrating everything. Often it really comes down to a matter of interpretation, how you choose to see the evidence.
So where does that leave us? Is there a definitive answer to this question, like a smoking gun, that either proves or disproves intelligent design once and for all?
The thing is, science gives us these incredible tools to understand the how, like we can trace the evolutionary history of something like the flagellum. We can actually visualize its tiniest parts, even understand those mechanisms that control how it moves. But the why, that question of whether there's a grand design, a purpose behind it all, that often goes beyond what science can say for sure.
So no easy answers then.
Not always.
Okay.
But that's part of what makes this whole topic so fascinating, don't you think?
Sure.
Whether you see the bacterial flagellum as evidence of the sheer power of evolution or as this beautifully intricate design, I think we can all agree that it's a wonder of the natural world.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe someday we'll unlock even more secrets about the flagellum and where it came from. But until then, we're left with a sense of wonder and probably even more questions than we started with. But hey, that's the beauty of a good deep dive, right? Always leaves you hungry for more. Thanks for joining us today, Deep Divers. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.